This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers pulled away from Oklahoma City in the fourth quarter last night to win by 27 points and 15 rebounds from Anthony Davis. LeBron had 25 points and 6 assists. OKC plays the Clippers tonight at Crypto.com. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver attended the game. He's in town for a press conference today at the Clippers' new arena, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Silver is expected to announce that the NBA All-Star Game in 2026 will be played at the Intuit Dome. The Clippers move into their new home next season. The Chargers met Monday with Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh at an undisclosed location outside of California. The Chargers are the first NFL team to meet with Harbaugh, who appears to be making plans to leave Michigan. USC quarterback Caleb Williams is entering the NFL draft. Williams is projected to be the number 1 pick. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me. Back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour, Bridging Beats and Ballads. Reverend Lennox Yearwood harnesses the power of hip-hop to mobilize young voices in hopes of reshaping the political landscape. We will talk about building bridges, empowering communities, and fighting for a more equitable America in Hour 2 with the Reverend Lennox Yearwood. In our third hour,
we got some fresh fish, fellas!
Welcome to my jail, son. You're in here because they say you gotta pay. I'm in here to make sure you do. Congratulations, Adams. You are a father. Nobody told you. You're gonna spend the rest of your life in here. You ain't never gonna see that.
Truth is, I never thought about being a father.
He's a little mama's boy.
You know, you don't have to be like him, right?
But I just want to be there for my kid. If freedom's a state of mind, I guess my dream should be enough.
Just think about how much better your kid's gonna be without you around.
Bosco, when you gonna grow up?
I ain't content with dreaming. Humans are the greatest weakness in any security system. Prisons aren't inescapable. They're just meant to feel that way.
Running the streets as we adapt to crime. Trap my body if they trap my mind.
Need your help?
I know the game, bro.
Down 23, it get deep. When you sleep, even the blind man can see.
You think reading's gonna save your ass?
No, I do not, sir. I'm straight G.
Have at it.
I'm so close to not only freedom, but also to being a real father.
I would like to help you.
I love that more than anything in the world.
I'm thinking about a master plan. I gotta make it back to the fan. I'm thinking about a master plan. I gotta make it back to the fan. I'm thinking about a master plan. I gotta make
You can only protect yourself by your choices.
I'm thinking about
Oh my
a
gosh.
plan. I gotta make it back to the fan.
Bosco is a film based on the true story of Quante Bosco Adams, sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for attempting to possess marijuana. Bosco pulled off one of the most ingenious prison breaks of modern times. Years after his capture, he escaped again by teaching himself the law, firing his attorney, representing himself in federal court, and winning his freedom. The film is now a Peacock original, and Quante Bosco Adams joins us live in studio today in Hour 3. If you've not heard his story or seen him on national media, you have to hear this. Brother goes to prison for attempting to buy marijuana for 35 years in federal prison and escapes. It's quite the story. You'll want to hear it straight from Bosco's mouth. He'll be in studio today live in our third hour. Quite the tale. But let's commence today's show talking politics with author and national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine, our friend and brother John Nichols. John, how are you today, sir?
Brother Tavis, I am talking to you from the middle west of the country where the temperatures are 25 below zero. And so I am A, fine because I'm a good Midwesterner, but B, lording that over you because I'm sure it's a little bit warmer there.
Just a wee bit. Climate change is real, and so it's not as warm in Los Angeles as it used to be, or even around this time of the year. But we are working our way through it. It's not 25 below, so I'm not going to complain. I will not complain because I grew up in that. I'm from the Midwest, as you know.
I know you got the strength.
Yeah.
You got the power.
I don't know if I still have it anymore, John. I used to have it. I go back there now, and my bones are brittle. But I used to have the power when I grew up in the Midwest back in Indiana, so I recall those days well. Let me set the frame for this. When we come forward, we'll jump right into this. The obvious story today that we have to start with in this first hour is Donald Trump. Whether we want to or not, it's Donald Trump. As expected, Donald Trump wins Iowa yesterday. The Iowa caucuses, the first sound off, if you will, in this campaign for president. We've been in the campaign for 3 years, as it were. The minute Donald Trump finally left the White House, he started campaigning. So we knew this day would come again. And yet, while we knew that Donald Trump would win Iowa, he didn't just win last night. He crushed. He crushed it in Iowa last night. And there are all kinds of tentacles that offshoot what it means that he crushed in Iowa last night. Haley, nowhere close. DeSantis, nowhere close. He ran the table last night, essentially, as it were, in Iowa. What does that mean? And for those who thought that maybe there was a chance that somebody could stop him, that this locomotive might be slowed down, it ain't going to be DeSantis. It ain't going to be Haley or anybody else that I can see at the moment. And if he keeps being successful at delaying these cases, and if the Supreme Court says that he's immune because of his being a sitting president, then it's on and popping. There is no way I see at this moment that Trump is not the presumptive nominee, that we are not going to have a sequel of Biden v. Trump. That's the frame we're in. John Nichols will unpack it for the rest of the hour, not to mention Bill Ackman, the white dude who's behind pushing Claudine Gay out at Harvard, made some strange and nasty, ugly comments about Dr. King yesterday on the King holiday. You have to hear that. Our guest for the hour is John Nichols. You're listening to him right now on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Hello, I'm John McKinney, your candidate for District Attorney. As an African American who has served our community for over 25 years, I'm proud to have successfully convicted the killer of Nipsey Hussle, standing up for justice where it matters most. But my commitment extends beyond the courtroom. I'm deeply invested in youth development. And when it comes to our police, I believe in accountability. It is essential that those who protect us are also responsible to us, reflecting the values and integrity of our community. This election, I ask for your vote. I am John McKinney, and I'm running to be your district attorney. Learn more at McKinneyforLA.com.
Paid for by John McKinney for LA District Attorney 2024.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
I started vaping my freshman year of high school, mostly because all my friends had vapes. I wanted to fit in with them and look cool and be a part of everything that they were doing. The hardest part about quitting for me was all my friends still hitting their vapes right next to me. It was really frustrating and confusing when I was trying to quit because in my head I knew I didn't want to do it anymore, but for some reason my brain still wanted it.
No quit story is the same. For free support, text Kick Nicotine to 66819 today.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
John Nichols, I can't imagine anybody I'd rather be talking to unpack what happened yesterday than you, and so I'm delighted to have the national affairs correspondent for the nation on this program for the rest of this hour. Let me just yield to you to unpack it any way you want to unpack it. As I said a moment ago, Donald Trump didn't just win in Iowa last night. He crushed it, and there are all kinds of tentacles that offshoot that reality. Take it away, John Nichols.
Well, my brother, it is a great pleasure to be with you, and it always is. I saw you the other day, I think it was on CNN, and that made me quite both enlightened and happy.
Thank you, sir.
They were tuning into some important commentary there. Hey, what happened in Iowa is it should be seen on two levels, and I think this is really important. First level, Donald Trump controls the Republican Party. It is his party. There is simply no doubt of that. And it's amazing to me after now 8 years that there are still people who struggle with that reality. They say, well, you know, maybe if we throw enough Koch brothers money behind Nikki Haley, she could somehow knock him out of the running. That's just not going to happen, and that's the message you got from Iowa. The turnout there. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but let me just go to this core concept. A couple of stats that'll be relevant to you.
Sure.
A, he got over 50% of the vote, right? With all these other candidates campaigning, people running against him spent more money in total than he did, and they had better organization than he had. DeSantis had an incredibly thorough organization throughout the state with precinct captains in every place where they caucused, et cetera, the whole bit. And yet Trump still prevailed, and he won I think it's when all the numbers are in, he won 98 out of 99 counties. the only, I mean, how do you deal with that, right?
Yeah.
The only one he didn't win was Iowa City, where you got the big university there.
Sure.
And even there, he finished fine. He was very much in the running. And so with the people that come out for Republican caucus, these are core Republicans. They're for him. And it may be absurd, evangelical Republicans voting for a multi-divorced guy who's going to trial for all sorts of incredible scandals, but that's the reality. Now, put that in a box. Keep that, there, because you're exactly right. He's going to be the nominee. Now, let's open up another box, though. This is a fascinating one.
Okay.
Turnout in Iowa for the caucuses was the lowest in more than 2 decades, almost a quarter century. I was in Dubuque yesterday. There was just not any enthusiasm. I've covered these caucuses for years. There weren't the signs all over. There wasn't the people, even in the cold, and I know it's really cold, but Midwesterners can handle cold. There were people out, working the thing. This was a very dispirited sort of, walk through the motions sort of caucus situation. The people came. They voted for Trump. There's no question of that. But they didn't come in the kind of numbers or with the kind of energy that that I think a lot of the media would have us believe is out there. One other thing, they did an entrance poll, right? They asked people, what do you think about a lot of stuff as they're going in? In caucuses, you got to do an entrance poll, not an exit poll. 32% of the people going in said that if Trump is convicted of any of the 91 indictments that he's facing, he would be unfit for office. 32%. Now, I fully know that there are some Republicans who will vote for somebody who's unfit if they've got an R after their name. I'm not naive about that. But what I am telling you is that's a striking number. And it is an indication, I think in combination with the lower than expected turnout, that Trump's troubles may be harming him a little more than people expect. And we'll watch New Hampshire, where Nikki Haley might actually beat him, but it wouldn't be by much, and it wouldn't derail him. But we'll keep watching to see if there's a pattern here of Republicans who are just not as excited as we thought they were. And if that's the case, then it does create an opening for the Democrats and for Joe Biden. Although I know as we continue this program, we will talk about many of the challenges that Joe Biden faces as well.
We will indeed. Let me start interrogating now that you've laid the foundation, which you did beautifully and brilliantly as you always do. Now let me press back on a few things. Sure. On the turnout. It was bitterly cold in Iowa, and you're right. Midwesterners can handle cold, but it was chillingly frigid in Iowa yesterday. Number one, and I suspect that has something to do with turnout. Number one, these are my best responses to your claim. And then you can respond to what any way you choose. So one, I would argue on turnout, just to play devil's advocate, that it was bitterly cold and that kept people inside. It's not necessarily a sign that people aren't enthusiastic about Trump in Iowa. He won 98 out of 99 counties, to your point. So maybe it was the weather, number one. Number two, it may have been a foregone conclusion. Like, why would you brave the weather when it's bitterly cold, when it's below freezing? Why would you brave the weather to come out when you know this guy is going to crush it in Iowa? So why come out? So it may very well be that there's not an enthusiasm gap, John, but it was a foregone conclusion. Why put yourself out in that way, number two? Number three, And this is a claim that DeSantis and others have made, and they've been hopping mad today, as you know, that the media called this race for Trump 30 minutes after the polls closed, if not sooner. It was so fast, because to your point, you're doing an entrance poll at the caucus and not an exit poll. So the media was already abundantly clear that about the fact that Trump was going to win, and they called this race very quickly. Now, I know what that feels like because I live in California. This show is heard across the country in syndication. I'm grateful for that, but we're based in L.A. You know how many times they've called elections before our polls close here in California? So in California, we know what that feels like. But DeSantis and others are suggesting that part of what dampened the turnout was that they called the race so quickly, there's no reason to go out to cast your vote in the cold if the media has already called the race for Donald Trump. Okay, those are my 3 responses. Now you can pick me apart and kick my behind.
Oh, come on. I would never pick you apart. I mean, it is a great honor to just be with you. And those are great responses. Excellent. And this is the only way we communicate with people is if we, make our statements and then dig deeper into it, make sure that we can stand up with them and stand strong with them. So here's the argument that I'll tell you. Yeah, it was cold, but you know what? People in Iowa have cars. They have cars, my friend.
What? They have cars? They have cars in Iowa. They not just sleds and sleighs. They have cars in Iowa.
Exactly. They're not walking down 20 miles from the farm to the town center to participate in the caucus.
Yeah.
And you know what else? Those cars have really good heaters because it's not just cold on caucus day; it's cold on a lot of days.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is, I've covered Iowa caucuses over many years. I covered the 2000 caucus, where Democrats were doing it with Gore and Bill Bradley.
I was there then. I was there for that one. Yeah.
And you still haven't got feeling back in your fingers, right? I mean, it was that cold.
Yeah, it was.
And so they've had cold caucuses before. The fact of the matter is, if the way that media covers Trump, they tell you his backers are so enthusiastic they'd walk through fire. Well, you're telling me, but they wouldn't walk through cold. I don't buy it. I think that the cold was a factor. I don't deny that. Wouldn't begin to deny that. But it's not so overwhelming a factor that it explains the fact that, give you an example, in 2016, Trump lost Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time he won biggest landslide ever, right? This incredible thing.
Mm-hmm.
He only got 10,000 more votes than when he lost.
So
there's
that's telling. That's telling, yeah.
Yeah, there's a gap there.
That's
now,
telling.
on some of these other things, I think you're right about the media call, which was really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you, because I don't know that everybody listening in knows how an Iowa caucus works. A caucus isn't just stopping by the polling place, getting in line and going and casting a ballot. A caucus is you go in a room, you take a seat, the candidates speak, everybody kind of like talks to one another. A caucus can go for an hour, hour and a half. And so if you're calling that caucus in the first half hour, right, and people have cell phones, and another thing, people in Iowa not only have cars, but they have cell phones. And people are looking on their cell phones, and they're seeing that CNN just called the election, right, just said it's all over. Does that have an impact? You bet it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Mr. DeSantis, like him or not, has a point there. So, these things we can all put in the mix. But still, I will tell you this, Tavis. At the end of the day, it just wasn't as energetic and as strong as I think that a lot of the media would like to have you imagine it was.
Mm-hmm.
Trump did fine. He got his win. He's going to be the nominee. But if I'm Joe Biden, I'm looking at these numbers, and what I'm saying is two things. Number one, mobilization wasn't as strong as I think you would have expected, and that's even after Trump worked far harder in Iowa than he ever has before.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to small towns. He was hustling it, and he had precinct captains a whole bit. Number two, again, I go back to that 32% number. 32% say if Trump is convicted of something, he's unfit for office.
Yeah.
And that, I don't think all those people are going to vote for Joe Biden. I can tell you for sure they're not.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can tell you is that if they do what a lot of Iowans did and just stay home, that's a bit of a warning signal for Trump.
Yep.
And I'm the last person in the world to tell you that people should, like pop a champagne cork and think, oh, everything's over. I don't believe that.
But I do believe we got some information out of Iowa that is useful and interesting as we go forward.
And that's why I wanted to have you on, because you can help us parse the tentacles, as I said earlier, the offshoot, the crushing that he was championing last night at the podium about his victory. So there are at least two things I want to interrogate right quick regarding that 32%, because that number is a critical number. I've discussed this on this program before with you and others, but after or post Iowa, it's worth interrogating this and digging down a little deeper. So these numbers indicate that Trump's support softens significantly, as John Nichols just said, if in fact he is convicted of anything between now and Election Day. So there are at least two or three things in that regard. Number one, because Merrick Garland dragged his feet at the Department of Justice on doing anything about this sooner, Benny Thompson, the chairman of the committee, the January 6th House Select Committee, John, as you know, was on this program a couple weeks ago. And Benny Thompson just said flat out, I asked him directly, he said flat out, if Donald Trump wins this election, in part because he did not get convicted prior to Election Day, we blame Merrick Garland for that. And we ought to storm the Department of Justice. These are my words. He didn't say this part. We ought to storm DOJ and take him out and hang him in effigy, if nothing else. But in part, we are looking at these numbers suggesting that again, Trump's support softens if he's convicted, but the if wouldn't even be in the sentence if Merrick Garland had moved sooner and not waited on. I mean, it's, as we all know, it's the January 6th Select Committee hearing that pushed DOJ to do something. They took their report and finally decided to move on it. So that's a long way of asking my first of three questions here, how you view Merrick Garland dragging his feet that puts us in a situation where Trump can run out the clock.
Merrick Garland, wrong attorney general at the wrong time.
Wow. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wrong attorney general at the wrong time. Honorable man.
Yeah.
Might have been a good Supreme Court justice if Mitch McConnell had let it happen. Wrong attorney general at the wrong time. Guilty of dereliction of duty.
Wow. Now that okay, I didn't see that coming. That's a strong indictment, John. Guilty of dereliction of duty?
Yeah, not because he's an evil man.
No, I get it. I get it.
Bad man.
Yeah.
But simply because he fell into that Washington trap.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's sort of like, and I know how Washington works. I'm not there all the time, but I know how it works.
Yeah.
Here's the bottom line. After January 6th of 2021, they all thought, well, Trump's done, right? You know what I mean? He can't come back from this. And there was the impeachment. It didn't quite succeed, but, blah, blah, blah. They thought, well, the fact is, Trump never thought he was done. Never believed that for a second.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that an attorney general shouldn't think that way, right? You shouldn't think, it's going to go away. Why should I bother? We got other things to think about. No, you had serious issues here that needed to be examined. Jack Smith should have been appointed in 2021, not 2023 or whatever. And Benny Thompson is exactly right. And I have to tell you this. Look, I've covered Benny Thompson since he was first elected to Congress.
Wow.
That's a very, very long time.
Very long time.
I was down there. I was there in Mississippi when he won that primary, and it was a critical fight. And I can tell you, Benny Thompson has risen to a position of great authority in Congress, not by holding a lot of press conferences, not by being a showy guy. He just does the job.
Yeah.
And yet, on that January 6th committee, he did the job. He did the job that the Department of Justice should have done.
Yeah. No,
so that's my response.
I've said many times that it is beyond irony that it takes a black man once again to save this democracy from itself. A brother from Mississippi helped save this democracy and forces Merrick Garland, who John Nichols says is guilty of dereliction of duty, into doing what he did. But he did it so late that the clock may run out. When we come forward, I said there are three things I wanted to talk about with John regarding those numbers that are softening for Trump if, in fact, he's convicted. One, what does it mean when you're the president that your best chance to win is that the other guy loses, that the other guy gets convicted, to be more exact about it? That's strange. And I wonder whether this opens up the door. If people are softening on Trump, but they ain't going to vote for Biden as a protest vote, do they vote for Cornel West? Do they vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Does it help the independents running for president? A lot more to talk about. We ain't got to Bill Ackman and his crazy comments about Dr. King yesterday. You're listening to John Nichols of The Nation on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is out of the hospital. The Pentagon said that he was released from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center Monday. The African-American Defense Secretary was admitted to the hospital 2 weeks ago due to complications from prostate cancer surgery. He'll work remotely for a period of time while having full access to secure communications capabilities. Inflation slowed in 2023 while Americans continue to spend at the grocery store. Average weekly grocery spending is highest in California, followed by Nevada, Mississippi, Washington, and Florida. Households in Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan, and Indiana spend the least on groceries, averaging $220 to $230 per week. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers pulled away from Oklahoma City in the fourth quarter last night to win by 7, 27 points and 15 rebounds from Anthony Davis. LeBron had 25 points and 6 assists. OKC plays the Clippers tonight at Crypto.com. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver attended the game. He's in town for a press conference today at the Clippers' new arena, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Silver is expected to announce that the NBA All-Star Game in 2026 will be played at the Intuit Dome. The Clippers move into their new home next season. The Chargers met Monday with Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh at an undisclosed location outside of California. The Chargers are the first NFL team to meet with Harbaugh, who appears to be making plans to leave Michigan. USC quarterback Caleb Williams is entering the NFL draft. Williams is projected to be the #1 pick. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice, and injustice. The courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Ariva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Ariva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've all felt the impact of rising food prices. For families in poverty, they're facing malnutrition and even death. You can feed a family for a month with your $50 donation to Compassion International. Just text the word radio to 97646.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of This Light of Ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This Light of Ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This Light of Ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with John Nichols, our friend and brother who is the national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine, who always tackles politics with passion and purpose and is always transparent. And I love it that way. Straight, no chaser is John Nichols. We're talking in this hour about a number of things, some trending political themes. And of course, the big topic today is Donald Trump. Yesterday, not winning, as I said earlier, but crushing in Iowa. DeSantis and Haley, way off in the distance. And so it appears at the moment that Donald Trump, with more evidence, will likely be the presumptive Republican nominee. But we're unpacking some numbers, and as John Nichols does so uniquely and so brilliantly, he's taking us behind some of these numbers, and the one he's been focusing on for the last few minutes is this number. I'll let you unpack the number again, John, and I'll continue with my question. So it's a 32% number that said exactly what?
32% were asked if Trump was convicted, would he be fit for office? 100% were asked that question. 32% of Republicans who went to these caucuses, remember, on this cold night, a third of them said if he's convicted, he's unfit.
Okay.
And that's a big number.
It's a big number. So a third says if he's convicted, he's unfit for office. That's it. To John's point, that is a big number. So we're unpacking that. So my first question to John, in case you've just tuned in, was the fact that Merrick Garland, we didn't have a question, it was a statement, that we have Merrick Garland to blame, the Attorney General, for pursuing these cases against Trump so late in the process that Trump now has an opportunity to run out the clock and not be convicted in any of these cases that would matter between now and Election Day. So that 1/3 is a significant number, but you got to be first convicted for that 1/3 to kick in. And at this point,
that's right.
I don't see a conviction coming before the election. So we'll see. But that's put a pin in that. But I've been mad at Merrick Garland for a long time, and I'm still mad at him the more I think about this reality, number one. Number two, I raised this issue that I want to get John's take on about Joe Biden. And let's talk about Biden for a second. So I was at a King dinner on Monday, the King holiday, and one of the persons at the dinner who I spent some time talking to was the California Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. As you know, there have been secretaries of state all across the country who have had to make a decision about whether to keep him on or push him off the ballot. There are states that have done both, and Trump is of course challenging that all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So we'll see what the Supreme Court says about these various 50 states that want him on and don't want him on. But in California, Shirley Weber decided that he belongs on the ballot, and I agree with her, until and unless he's found guilty of something. Not because we love him, but because he's not been found guilty of anything, and I believe in due process, fundamental fairness, and presumption of innocence, even if your name is Donald J. Trump. So Shirley Weber and I agree in California here that he belongs on the ballot. Of course, she says that also because she knows he ain't going to win in California anyway. But the point is that he hasn't done anything for which he's been found guilty to push him off the ballot. So she saw it differently than they saw it in the state of Colorado. But here's my point. What does it mean, though, John, to you, that perhaps Joe Biden's greatest hope is that his opponent gets convicted. That ain't a winning strategy, brother.
I agree. Look, here's the bottom line. Joe Biden has epically low approval rates. He is not inspiring a lot of enthusiasm. He may well be reelected president of the United States, as he was elected in 2020, but I think there's too much of a chance that it will be as the alternative to Trump, right? That he's a little better than Trump. And when you're in a situation like that, it can go either way. He could get reelected. He could lose. And so here's where I get into my great concern about the Democratic Party. And I've written books about this, so it's something nothing new. I've been talking about this for a long time. Democrats have, I think, since the Clinton years, fallen into the trap of saying they're better than Republicans, right? They're not as bad as the Republicans. It's, hold your nose and vote for us. And that is it can be a winning strategy sometimes, I understand, but it can also blow up on you. It blew up on them in 2016, many other times before that. And so I continue to express deep concern about how Joe Biden is approaching this reelection campaign. And just as in Iowa, Trump had his test yesterday. Next week in New Hampshire, Biden's going to have a bit of a test as well. And if a substantial number of New Hampshire voters, let's say a third of New Hampshire voters, don't vote for Biden, right? They vote for Dean Phillips or Marianne Williamson, or maybe as there's a campaign out there trying to write in ceasefire now on Gaza. Whatever happens, if he loses a substantial portion of the vote there, I think Democrats, just as I'm saying Republicans, ought to take a look at this 1/3 of folks who think that Trump would be unfit if convicted. Democrats ought to also be looking at these realities that Biden has not done the basics, I think, or some of the basics on uniting the kind of core base of the Democratic Party. That's a big problem politically.
No, it is. Let me try this on you for size and see if this fits. This may or may not be a garment that fits well on you, but let me try it on you. All right. So Democrats have done something for the last number of years that I find, speaking of holding your nose, I find it reprehensible. I understand the strategy, or as George Bush would say, the strategery. I understand the strategery behind it, but I hate it as a strategy. So Democrats, as you know, across the country in certain selected races have supported a particular Republican candidate to challenge the person, to kick out the person they really don't want to run against, or to make it harder for that person to win the nomination. You know this strategy where they pick a person in a particular race for their own reasons, and Democrats will pour money and support into a particular race on the other side of the ticket to achieve a particular desired outcome. I hate that strategy. You're aiding and abetting them because in the end, you think it's a better strategy for you. Okay, I get it, but it's sick. Republicans could do the same thing. So that 1/3 that we're talking about, they could take a page out of the Democratic playbook and decide they're not going to vote for Trump if he's convicted because he is then unfit for office as they see it, but they can't stand Joe Biden either. So now you leverage, now you can leverage your vote as a protest vote. You could do what Democrats have done in Republican races and vote for Cornel West or Bobby Kennedy or Marianne Williamson or Dean Phillips or any of these other independents that are running. It sounds far-fetched, but if the Democrats can do it, why can't Republicans? If it's good for the goose, why ain't it good for the gander, John?
Well, I think so. Let's talk about two separate things.
Sure.
One, possibility that some Republicans might come into Democratic primary, in states that allow open voting, and vote for Marianne Williamson or Dean Phillips or somebody to embarrass Biden. I think in the primary process, that is within the realm of possibility. We've seen some of that in the past, and I wouldn't be shocked if we did again. In the general election, you're getting to something that's really important here. Look, if you've got a substantial number of Republicans who feel like they can't vote for their candidate, their party's candidate, and you've got a substantial number of Democrats who feel the same way, we run the possibility this year of having a large number of voters who cast their ballots for independent and third-party candidates who cannot win or who are very unlikely to win, but who could affect the result. And then the big test, this is a fascinating test, it's who keeps enough of their base within their camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which party loses more into that voting for independents and third-party candidates?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll give you a good example of where this happened in your lifetime and mine.
Hold that thought, John. I want to hear that great example. I hate to cut you off. I want to hear that great example in your lifetime and mine. This is not far-fetched at all. Again, Democrats have been doing this for a while now, picking and popping and playing the way they want to for a desired outcome. Republicans are no better than we are. Democrats are doing the same thing. But I want to hear this example that John has when we come forward.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to John Nichols of The Nation magazine giving us an example that he didn't get a chance to complete moments ago. Take it away, John.
All right, my friend. Well, we're talking about, this losing people off from the two parties because people are frustrated with the candidates of both parties. I take you back to 1980. In 1980, Jimmy Carter was re-nominated for president of the United States, Democratic president, but he had a lot of internal opposition. There was a great deal of frustration with him. Teddy Kennedy ran against him in the primary, so did Jerry Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't beat him, but ceded that opposition. Over on the Republican side, you had Ronald Reagan get the nomination. But an awful lot of Republicans in those days were still moderate Republicans who thought Reagan was too extreme, was too out there. And also a former actor. They didn't take him as seriously as, frankly, they should have. End result in 1980, the Libertarian Party got 1 million votes. John Anderson, running as a former congressman, he got millions of votes and actually got, I think it was like 6-7% of the overall total. Barry Commoner, the scientist, got a substantial vote on a very left-wing ticket. Bottom line is a tremendous number of people went off into third parties. Another example, much more recent, 2016, where the Libertarian Party got its highest vote ever, where Jill Stein and the Greens got a very, very substantial vote, and where there was, other minor parties, third parties, that got way more than normal. When that happens, you introduce volatility into the process. And when that volatility gets introduced in, you can end up with results you didn't expect. Trump won because an awful lot of people went off over to third parties. Don't blame the third parties for that, by the way. Don't blame the independents for that. They don't get those votes unfairly. They get those votes because people are frustrated with the major candidates. I think we've got a little bit of potential for that this fall. I do think a lot of people are not taking Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s candidacy as serious as they should. It's not that you should like him or dislike him.
Sure.
It's that he does have a base. And I think Cornel West may as well.
No, there's a lot of volatility in this race. Cornel West is our guest on this program yesterday. He was our lead guest on the King holiday yesterday. An amazing conversation. If you missed it, go to any of our social platforms. You can find the podcast of that conversation yesterday with Dr. West. Brilliant as always in our dialogue with him on yesterday's program. Speaking of Dr. King, when we come forward, Bill Ackman, the white brother behind pushing out Claudine Gay at Harvard, had some strange things to say about Dr. King yesterday on his holiday. We'll talk about that before we lose John Nichols at the top of the hour. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful they saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Charles Barkley in a pickup game.
We'll take Barkley.
Ha! First pick. Sorry, kids.
Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision?
Okay, here's the plan. Pass me the ball every time.
This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Got about 4.5 minutes left. 4.5 minutes left with John Nichols. John, so I want to get to this right quick here. You mentioned Dean Phillips earlier in this conversation. Dean Phillips is a former Democratic congressman who has decided to challenge Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination. Cornel West and Robert Kennedy running as independents, but Dean Phillips running as a Democrat against President Biden for the Democratic nomination. So Bill Ackman is the white brother who you all know, discussed many times on this program, was behind pushing out Claudine Gay at Harvard. And he's a billionaire hedge fund manager. And in a conversation yesterday with guess who? Elon Musk on X and Democratic candidate Dean Phillips. So they were all together because Ackman last week pledged $1 million to Phillips' campaign to help him get the nomination. He won't win, of course, against Joe Biden. But I want to just make it clear who this Bill Ackman guy is. He pushed out Claudine Gay at Harvard. Then we found out his wife had plagiarized her own work. Now he's giving $1 million to Dean Phillips to try to defeat Joe Biden. And he's hanging out yesterday with Phillips and Elon Musk for a conversation on X. And here's what he had to say, and I quote, I think Dr. King would be very opposed to this sort of ideology, even though diversity is a good thing, even though, of course, a culture where everyone feels comfortable and included is critically important. He says that he refers to King's I Have a Dream speech being precisely about a world where people will be judged by the color of their skin, but not the content of their character. And when I came to learn about the DEI movement, which is an ideological movement, it really is the reverse of that. It goes on and on and on. You can find this story at Rolling Stone. Just Google Rolling Stone. And the headline is, Bill Ackman says MLK would be opposed to DEI movement. He has some other strange things to say, but this Bill Ackman guy is becoming more and more into focus for a lot of people, and he obviously ain't shy about it, John Nichols.
He is not shy about it. And remember, we had another guy who did this back a few decades ago named Donald Trump. So sometimes these wealthy guys start getting interested in politics, and the next thing you know, they're in it. One thing I will tell you, and by the way, if you look at Trump's record of how he came into politics at the Central Park Five,
Same
you
way.
realize that they often come in pretty ugly ways.
That's right.
So here's the deal on this. I don't claim to be the greatest expert on Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I wrote a book about his ideology and his politics, and that of others. It was a book about social democracy in America, and I read an awful lot of King's writings, including his letters, diaries, everything. And my sense of this is that Dr. King really did want a colorblind society, but he wasn't a fool. He understood that to get there, you didn't get there by denying reality, by denying, history. You got there by understanding it in a deeper and more fundamental way. Dr. King was an intellectual. He was a profoundly educated man who spent a lot of time studying, a lot of time researching. He took seriously understanding why things happen, the systems, the structures. And so I would disagree with Mr. Ackman.
Yeah.
In fact, quite passionately, I think Dr. King would say that as a society, we desperately need to examine systemic racism. We desperately need to examine these barriers. That's my view.
Bernice, his daughter, who I know well, Bernice, the youngest daughter, has pushed back and said, my father's dream and work included eradicating racism, not ignoring it. He was about eradicating racism, not ignoring it.
That's right.
And we spent time with our conversation with Cornel West just yesterday on this program. Again, check out the podcast. We were talking about this very issue yesterday. While we were talking about this, Ackman was acting a fool. And we were talking about the fact that people are twisting his words like a pretzel. It was Dr. West in the first hour. Then our third hour, there's a book out precisely about this by a professor at USC. She was on our third hour yesterday, and we talked about her book, and it specifically is about how the right continues to weaponize King's words against all the rest of us. So, again, check out yesterday's program if you missed any of it. We talked about this very stuff yesterday. Here, Bill Ackman just steps right into it intentionally and unapologetically. We'll talk more about this in the days ahead. I digress for now. John Nichols, I appreciate you, man. Love your insights. And, my friend, stay warm to the extent you can.
I want you to come out to Wisconsin.
Nope, not doing it.
We'll test your mettle.
Not doing it. Talk to you soon, John. All the best to you.
I look forward to it, brother. Be strong. Take care.
Likewise. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest. From the Black Information Network, the newest members of California's Hall of Fame include former Democratic Assembly Speaker Willie Brown Jr., who served as Speaker from 1980 to 1995. He was the first black man to hold that position. The trailblazer went on to become mayor of San Francisco. He was succeeded by Gavin Newsom. School districts in North Georgia are making adjustments due to the weather threats. Around 20 school systems have called off classes or switched to remote learning